When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion.
Trying to move the community forward. And we feel like the best way to do that is to get all of the leaders together. We'll have a broader base and a more powerful force to be able to move our community forward.
There's a value piece that's a leg of the African American Collaborative. You know, there's the values, there's the education and family, there's the economics and systems. So it seems like the pastor would be a natural fit in the values of the community. Bringing back, we were talking about elders and respect for our elders and that sort of thing. The pastors can help in that area. And also, just the idea of the Black Collaborative in general. There's an Ethiopian proverb that says, when spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion. Just think if we can get the African American community to unite.
Unification, everyone working together for a specific purpose, for a set goal to reach a certain point. Setting aside priorities within the African American community. That's one goal that we're seeking to reach. And then their strategies. Okay, so we may have priorities of things that we know within our community we need to try to address, but what are those strategies we can use as a community, as an African American community, to actually address those priorities or those concerns that we were able to identify? What does that actually look like? And then once those strategies then are put into place, then we need to look at, well, who's the best fit, if you would, or who wants to take that on, who has the ability to take that on, who has the capacity, what are the actual needs, what still needs to happen, what does that look like? Being able to articulate all those various facets then brings us to a point of being able to say, okay, this is what we know for sure. This is what we need to have happen. This is how those things can happen. And now as a unified front, we can go to funders, if you would, and say, this is what we need in our African American community, and this is how you can fund us to make those things a reality.
The pastors have been here, but it's not just pastors, it's community leaders too, showing them appreciation that we still value them in our community. Because like Joanne said, they have a certain value that they bring when they're at a meeting. You know what I'm saying? You're going to get a different type of person at that meeting, or a different set of tone at that meeting than having one without them being there.
Pastors are the foundation. Those spiritual leaders, they set the foundation for the values in our community. You know, what we believe is right and wrong. And then everything else, from my perspective, it springboards off of that spiritual foundation, right? So even if you're not religious, most people claim to be spiritual, right? So everything else springboards off of that. You know, what we value, and as far as the work that the Urban League does, or as far as the work that our educators do. I mean, people don't really think that, or make the connection between education and spirituality or religion. But in religion, it promotes education. Scripture says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. It says, get wisdom, get understanding. That's education. So the scriptures promote education. So springboard, coming right off of that values piece, coming off the religious piece, you have that. You know, the Bible talks about, you know, how to treat your neighbor as yourself. You know, we talk about the golden rule. You know, it talks about how to treat women too. You know, Christ said, you know, well, maybe it was Paul, but one of them said, you know, love your wife as Christ loved the church. You know, so if you're talking about women's rights, I mean, a lot of things you can root back to the Bible.
There's certainly a place for the spiritual community in every aspect of the African American Collaborative, because you mentioned education. I know I know specifically about a church that has a tutoring program that is doing phenomenal work with the children in our community. So where they may want to be in the values part, where they're certainly also welcomed in the education part.
Yes, I'm glad that you brought that up because that to me is important. Yes, we understand pastors as spiritual leaders, and so they uphold a certain level of value, and that doesn't exclude them from being able to be participatory in any of the priority areas. It's based on your heart, where you want to serve and where you want to see change and betterment within the community.
When spider webs unite, they can tie up a lion.
You know, we think of spider webs. You go through old houses and you just take a broom, or if you braid, you take your hand and you tear down, right? Tear down those spider webs, you know. And sometimes we may look at our community and we may think, well, you know, we're worthless, we're weak, you know, we don't have nothing to offer. But, you know, when you think about those spider webs, we may just be a whole bunch of spider webs, right? Old, dusty, in some people's opinion. But those old dusty spider webs, like you said, coming together can create a powerful force. And I think that is the power of the African American Collaborative, is bringing all the pieces together, little bitty pieces making up the larger thing. You know, it being an initiative or community initiative, there's nobody that has to lose their individuality.
That's important. That's important because we recognize that when people hear the word collaboration or partnership, sometimes they immediately begin to draw back because they feel as though they will get lost in the shuffle and lose that identity, where what we're talking about in this initiative with the African American Collaborative, no, it's everyone working together irrespective of your individual organization. You're all welcome. Everyone has a part that they can play. Everyone.
Yeah, so each organization remains that organization. They don't lose any authority. They don't lose any power. The collaborative doesn't have any influence on their day to day. You know, the collaborative is these individual entities coming together saying there's some things that we need to do on a larger scale. And I think in some pockets of the community, they call this systems level.
Systems
You
level
know, there's
work.
some systems levels work. There's some things we need to do on a higher level. And in order to be impactful, we need to do it together.
Hence collective impact.
Exactly.
Collectively working together to make a huge impact on what it is that we're trying to impact.
Exactly. So we decide what is it that needs to be tackled together. What is it that, you know, you got on here, you know, we have different, like you was naming, you know, we have different things going on in our community. We have, you know, mentorship, we have reading programs, we have advocacy, we have all these different pieces, economic development, workforce development. All these different organizations are working on little things in little pockets, right? Making dents in our community. But what needs to be done collectively? What needs to be done on a large scale? What is in a category that says a little dent is not going to do it? You know, it's certain things that, you know, you can pull out your shovel to do. You know, but when you need to build a house, what are those things called?
Bulldozer.
Right, you need a bulldozer. You need one of those catters. You know, you need the big material, big equipment, and that's what the collaborative is. It doesn't mean that the shovel is not effective.
Oh, it's necessary.
Right, you know, the shovel is very effective, but every now and then you have to get a bulldozer.
Exactly.
And so the collaborative is that bulldozer, and our individual, I love that.
Ooh.
The collaborative is the bulldozer, But our individual organizations are the shovels that do the day-to-day work, that builds gardens, creates gardens and farms and does all the things that we do within the community. But what we're trying to do at a systems level is build a monument, build a skyscraper, and to do that, we need a bulldozer.
Exactly.
And that's what the collaborative is that bulldozer, and we come together collectively as individual organizations and people. And the pastors are a very important role. They're vital, if you ask me. I think a year from now, we could really see a different African American community in Battle Creek.